Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. It's the Juice and Luce show after a win for once in our recent run. It's been a really rough start, Juice, for you and I on the microphone so far to start the season. But as you heard, Juice and Luce show here with you. Juice, buddy, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the baseball game and a beautiful Cubs win, how are you, my friend? You've got some exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, so I had been tweeting out today that this is a very special win for our family. So my sister on 2 days ago, so that would have been Monday, brought my little nephew into this world. So I'm officially Uncle Juice.
Uncle Juice.
Cooper Daniel Kirkland. And this is, obviously the Cubs were off on Monday, and this is Cooper's first Cubs win in this world. So congrats to my sister, to my brother-in-law Mitch, and welcome to the family, little Cooper. So I have this task, Ron. My brother-in-law is a White Sox fan, and my whole family is diehard Cub. So it's a uphill battle that I face, but I am taking the challenge as I refuse to lose, just like the Cubs did today.
Juice, it feels like, first off, congratulations to you and your family. Very exciting news, always exciting stuff. But buddy, it almost sounds like you have a battle of the Star Wars prequels going on here. Your little nephew here is one Anakin Skywalker, and you are Obi-Wan trying to keep him from the dark side that is White Sox fandom. I totally respect your uphill battle. I can rewatch your movies tomorrow while I'm, in between phone calls as background noise. And we'll imagine it coming out the other way, Juice, because as you mentioned, good juju for him in his first Cubs game right out the womb.
Yeah, that was just, and I think that's the title, right? Just what the doctor ordered.
Just what the doctor ordered.
How perfect of a title for that. I will say this, just to go back one more second, back to my nephew Cooper. I did hold him, and I held him with this here Cubs hat, and that way I exposed it early, which baseball allegiance he is going to belong to. But either way, just happy to have a little guy in our family, and everybody's good. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's all right.
Good. That's exactly what we love to hear, my mans. From Mr. Luce here. Congrats, Uncle Juice. And yeah, man, hey, that's what we love to hear. And like you said, the title of this episode is just what the doctor ordered, because Juice, I don't know if this thing's going to come off. I haven't had to change that.
Some cobwebs underneath there. A couple spiders ran out.
There is. So we can finally put the W on the hat for the first time in a long time, because every time they've won, I haven't been on a show. Maybe it's me. I'm the problem, Juice, not the Cubs.
It's a little Taylor Swift. It's me. Yeah, hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
I'm the problem. It's me. But hey, they washed that sin away with a nice 7-2 victory tonight over the Mets, Juice. Obviously, the big storylines in this one, Morel stays hot. Suzuki stays hot. Talkman playing his first game at Wrigley. He's a local guy, local to the Chicagoland area. And again, the Matt Mervis game. Where were you, Juice, for the Matt Mervis breakout game? All good things that happened tonight. Juice, initial thoughts right at the gate, man, for this big win.
It was odd, right? Kind of an odd game, I think, in terms of like watching the Mets. We were in the beginning of the broadcast, they showed how great they are at turning ground balls and outs, and then they threw the ball all around today. It opened up a lot of opportunities for the Cubs. And like you said, the guys who came up from Iowa starting to show you some wins here. And I think that's a huge, kind of storyline for the next couple games, at least this homestand, at least for me, because those two, and Morel has got it going, and Mervis seems to be getting more and more comfortable as he gets more at-bats in the big leagues, really need to produce. Now you've DFA'd Hosmer, you've made some changes to the roster in hopes to get more at-bats for guys that I think are going to be mainstays on this team. And Now it's on those guys to just keep producing. You can't say enough about Christopher Morel. He's been absolutely brilliant since coming up. And Mervis, I think it's easy to look at the batting average and the slug and go, oh, where is it? First of all, it's going to come. He's too damn good of a hitter for him to continue to have the at-bats he's having, but he's been much more influential with the glove. It's been amazing to me that a young player like that who's getting his chance in the big leagues could easily struggle at the plate and then bring it out into the field, but he hasn't. He's been electric at picking at first base. He's made the typical plays. I don't think there's been one thing that I can remember over the course of him coming up where I've been like, man, that's just a young player making a young, dumb mistake. Yeah. He's been just great at that position. And two, I think today's game was just what the doctor ordered because the Cubs were able to experiment a little bit with this bullpen. They were able to throw guys into pressure cook situations like Jeremiah Estrada. He got into that bases loaded mess that Smiley had put together in the sixth there and comes out only giving up one run. I thought that was the change in the ball game there. It was the moment that over the course of this losing streak, you look at, the games they've lost and it's been the grand slam or the double into the gap that clears the bases in that situation. And he came in and worked the best way through it. And I think that if you look at this team over the course of this next, run that they can go on here, I think there's a lot to be excited about. And I think they're playing better baseball than their record shows, obviously. But I still sit here and I go, tonight you got this wonderful performance out of Seiya. You got this great performance out of Morel and Mervis. Like, there's still guys that need to get healthy, get back into this lineup. That way the offense stays consistent because we've seen this, right? Where they'll put up 7 runs in this opening game, and then the next 2 are like, they forget how to play baseball. This win tonight reminded me so much about like this game against the Twins that they played in that first series. They came out, they dominated, they won. They're like, all right, cool. Now win one of the next 2 and win a series. Don't let that happen again. Mm-hmm. Win this game, carry it in tomorrow. You got tough, probably pitcher's duel tomorrow, but yeah, I just don't let the foot off the gas. Keep rolling here, start stringing together wins, and find yourself back in the middle of this thing again.
100% Juice. And building off your point there, right, of don't let this become a habit of play a really great first game and then don't carry that momentum over the second game. This is the time they can do it now because they're also at home. You have that kind of, dare I say, it really is a Wrigley advantage to the Cubs. I mean, in recent years, this team has played astronomically better at home than it has on the road at times. So I think this is the time where they can correct that, Juice. And you're seeing, I think the biggest part is you've mentioned it on this show before. There are guys on this roster that show they can carry a team to at least be semi-competitive. Like, they can carry you consistently enough where they do enough damage that if you get just a couple of timely hits from some of these other guys, you don't need every guy in the order hitting when these guys are hot. And that right now is Seiya and Morel. I mean, these guys have been incredible. You get a night like tonight from a Matt Mervis. You get a little bit of contribution from a guy like Tauchman. I mean, if you look at the rest of the lineup, you had Swanson driving in a run, which we always love to see. Nico, 1 hit tonight. Hap, still 2 walks again. The guy's an on-base machine. But 0 for 3 for him tonight. You know what I mean? 0 for 4 from Patrick Wisdom with a bunch of Ks. Just 1 hit for Gomes, even though it drove in a run. They're just getting just enough of that sprinkle of offense right now. And that's what they need to keep up. I think that's how this team keeps going. Ride Morel. 5 straight games now with a home run. That ties a franchise record. And Jeremiah, betting man over here, saying, how much money are you willing to put up to see Morel break the franchise record with 6 consecutive homers? There's a real chance. It's going to be a little cooler in Chicago tomorrow, so it's going to be a cooler evening in Wrigley. Watch the flags. Never know how that changes. We're still in May, just for a little longer, folks. Can he do that again, right? Because if he gets that kind of big momentum swinging play, and in tonight's case, it just kind of was the
cherry on top.
The cherry on top, the final nail in the coffin, that kind of sealed the game, but you get that energy boost right out the gate from Seiya Suzuki. That kind of jolts the team right away. Oh, Seiya hits a big bomb. That's cool. And then they follow that up, Mervis with the 2-run homer. Like, that's what I think this team needs, is just those energy plays. It's a league now where the finesse plays again, but some nights ball go far, team go far. It just be that way, right? I mean, that is an on-tap Sportsnet wide statement here that our friend over on the other side, Mr. NWI Steve, likes to say. Ball go far, team go far. And in the case of like the last few games, that's kind of how it's been. If they're hitting 2, maybe 3 a game, they're winning. They're winning very convincingly, and they're showing that the power is there with this team. Very, very, very pleased with tonight's effort, but agree with you, Juice. They got to keep building on that. And Juice, I think quickly to kind of conclude our thoughts here on the hitters, because we absolutely have to dive a little deeper into the pitching tonight. How about a guy like Morel and Seiya being in the heart of the lineup? I feel like that kind of way, like today's lineup came out, and you kind of looked at it and you're like, I kind of like how that looks. I don't hate Mervis at the bottom of the lineup. Give him no pressure right now where he's trying to figure it out. Ride the hot hands. Let them sit in the power slot. Don't get, you don't have Belly like you said right now. There's some very important names that have missed some time. That's a big boost of confidence to two guys that, just coming up again in a guy like Morel, but then a guy who did struggle and was coming back from the injury in Seiya, that confidence boost from your manager. If I don't care that you were hurt, I don't care that you're fresh up. If you're hot, we're going to ride you.
I like Mervis very much so in that 9 spot too, because I don't know if you saw the graphic today. He's seeing the least amount of fastballs pretty much in the whole MLB. He's seeing a lot of breaking stuff, a lot of slow, out of the zone stuff. By putting him in that 9 hole, you probably buy him another fastball or 2 in the bat, because the thought process behind that is you don't want to walk the 9 hitter in front of 1, 2, 3, 4. So you probably buy him more hittable pitches opposed to burying him in like the 7th spot or the 6th spot, or even the 8th spot is totally different because you're still working with that 9 hitter. So I'm a big fan of that. I am interested to see what the lineup will look like when Belly is finally healthy again and back in that kind of middle of the order spot, because if you're going to continue, and you're obviously not going to get this home run performance from Morel all the way to the end of the year. And if you do, it'll be the most impressive career run in all of baseball in all time. It would be unbelievable to even watch. But even if you get like a quarter of what he's doing now, to where you get a home run like every couple days, you're still going to keep him in the middle of that lineup. And by adding a guy like Bellinger in there too, it really makes that lineup look deeper. Remember we were talking about like over the course of the Hosmer days and the playing Madrigal when people were hurt, and when Seiya Suzuki was out, we looked at that lineup. It's like, man, that's really top heavy. Like the first 4 were like, man, like that's a problem. But then everything after 4 was like, I don't know what I'm getting. Mm-hmm. Now, when you get a guy like Bellinger back into this mix, and you have Morel in the DH slot, and you have, Seiya Suzuki hitting at the clip that he's hitting in that Mervis in the 9 hole, you can really look and say, man, 1 through 9 looks pretty strong considering the fact of the bats you've gotten out of Yan Gomes this year. There's really not much of a weakness on this team, minus what we're seeing from Scott's guy, Patrick Wisdom over the past. But then again, I will say this. Joe Girardi talked about it today on the broadcast, and he talked about how he's just kind of in between, being early on the breaking stuff and being late on the fastball. I do think that Patrick Wisdom's power does come back eventually. This is just a terrible, little run for him. But yeah, you start to look at that lineup and you go, man, like 1 to 9, you could make a case that it's pretty solid all the way around. I do like Mervis in that 9-hole. I hope that's something that they keep up. I think this would be a lineup that we kind of see over the course of the next couple of days as well, because you got to ride what's working so far, and this obviously produced some results tonight.
Yeah, it sure did, and you absolutely love to see it. And it's good to see the bats come through. 7 runs, it's very infrequent that you put up 7 and lose, right? There's always those weird games, but overall, more often than not, you're going to get the dub. But to your point, Juice, I think this game could have gone a totally different direction if not for a pair of very impressive relief pitching performances. We'll get to Drew Smyly in a second as well. But like you mentioned, Estrada coming in a bases loaded, no out jam, and only allowing 1 run to score. That is massive for this team. And then you piggyback that on a guy like Leiter coming out for 1 1/3, bailing out Merriweather, and then another clean inning. Good to see Fulmer pitch well too. Don't get me wrong. Merriweather, things got hairy, but 2 strikeouts. He's shown he's still got the stuff. I think what's so impressive right now with this pen is when they are finally giving these guys chances, right? We're seeing Estrada. We need to start seeing more of that. And Juice, I want to know your thoughts not only on the performances, but on this as well. According to Bruce Levine, Jed Hoyer is taking responsibility for putting Ross in this situation with the bullpen, because guys that they really sold hard on, this guy could do it. This guy, $4 million to Fulmer, and all of a sudden they're in a bad spot. No lefties, I think, is maybe something else that's probably on Hoyer's mind outside of Hughes. There is for Hoyer to come out and say that. Maybe that gives us a little different perspective now how Ross is trying to use this bullpen. And on a night like tonight, you have to applaud him going to maybe not the most trusted veteran arm, but a guy like Estrada who's got the stuff to get you out of a jam like he did.
Yeah, I think you call me crazy, Ron, but I'm starting I'm starting to see a road to a passable major league bullpen. And I know it's only been a few games, but hear me out. If they get Cody Hoyer back and they're able to throw him in the closing role, you'll still have everyday Hughes, who, all things considered, with the knee and all that, has been pretty good. I think you'll still have Jeremiah Estrada in this mix as well. I mean, he throws hard enough to where it doesn't matter if he's missing his spots. And that's what kind of irks me about this bullpen and kind of in the pitching staff in general. I don't know if you saw this stat come out in this graphic on Twitter, but the Cubs throw like one of the least amount of 98-mile-an-hour over fastballs in all of the league. They still don't throw towards the top, but it's okay if you're able to throw crazy off-speed breaking stuff. That's fine. But a 99-mile-an-hour fastball is tough to hit, no matter where you throw it. And that's why, I think the pitching infrastructure, as much as I love the pitch data that they get and the pitch lab that they've created, it needs to pivot to just, hey, let's find guys who throw 100. Because they got to get to that point. I mean, the White Sox are one of the best in the league that do that. And their bullpen over the course of the last couple of weeks has been really solid. You start to kind of see that all come together. If you throw hard, it's tough to hit. It's just it's not that difficult to. But to go back to my point, I do think that you get a guy like Hoyer who throws really, really hard. Strada, who throws really, really hard out there. You have a nasty slide piece from the lefty Hughes, that you're able to work. Adbert Alzolay and Leiter have been your 2-inning guys, your potential 2-inning guys. And this is the one gripe I have with David Ross. Anytime Alzolay comes out of the pen, you should throw 2 innings. Enough of this 1 inning here, 1 inning there. If you're bringing him in, he's throwing 2. And I don't care if you want to use him the next day. It's probably more valuable for you to get 2 outs in a game that you're winning than it is to manage for tomorrow. So I'm looking at that, and then you start to look at some of these names, and after that, you just need one guy to return to normal. If it's Boxberger, if it's Fulmer, if it's Keegan Thompson after a stint down in AAA, then your bullpen starts to look a lot more major league ready. And I start to kind of look right now, and I start to wonder, is there, since Jed is taking ownership for this, does this mean Jed is more likely to fix the problem sooner rather than later? So I started doing some research regarding who would be available, and obviously we've talked about Aroldis Chapman on this podcast before, but I started looking at the Washington Nationals and kind of seeing what they have available, because obviously they're going to be sellers. There's a name that really intrigued me. There's actually two of them, one of which former Cub would be okay with it, but Carl Edwards Jr. on a really low return would maybe be okay. That's like a low A prospect down the line, whatever, that brings just another arm back in. But the one that I loved more was Hunter Harvey. I don't know if you've seen this kid pitch at all over the course, but he throws 98 miles an hour. He's got nasty, nasty stuff. Been injured a lot, bounced around the league. But Hunter Harvey has been one of those guys that shows me a lot of great stuff and is bounced around with his role within the Nationals and is able to close, able to come in high leverage situations. And the only knock on him is in the past, he hasn't been able to throw strikes. But as of this year, he's cleaned that up, and he's been a strike throwing machine. So I started to wonder, as a guy who you're looking at who has 2 more years left to arbitration, he kind of fits this little bill of, let's stock this bullpen with some arms that are controllable over the course of the next couple of years, in hopes that maybe, just maybe, we're not just adding this guy for now. We're adding him for our stretch run with our open window. And now we're able to, look in at maybe giving up maybe a higher end prospect. I'm not saying that they're going to be giving up somebody in the top 10 for this type of arm, let alone even the top 15. But in that 15 to 20 range, there's some guys that are probably expendable that if you're willing to bring back a bullpen arm, it'd be worth it. Now, the Cubs are going to have to play their way into Jed doing something like that. You're not going to buy right now for a team that's 4 games or 5 games under 500.
Yeah,
You're going to have to fight your way back and be close. But that was a name that I hadn't seen a lot of people bring up yet, and he's been fantastic over the course of this beginning of the season. Hunter Harvey, another name for us to kind of look up and look forward to as maybe a potential trade candidate.
I think that's really interesting because, like you said, with some of these guys, like, are the Cubs losing faith in what they have for bullpen arms? I don't think they are. I think what happened, Juice, was they were late to that. I think that's what you're seeing in terms of the guys that throw hard, because Estrada has come on of late. You're starting to see some of these other guys also come on of late at various levels that are throwing that just elite gas. Maybe we are seeing that coming. Maybe a Bailey Horn as a lefty, is coming. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they buy a little bit, especially with the intention of guys like Fulmer, Boxberger, maybe those guys becoming very expendable, and then do just kind of, like you said, controllable arms versus just 1-year guys that you probably were just keeping on the roster just in case you could flip them, right? And just to throw some innings for you at that point, because your guys weren't ready yet. So I think that's going to be something really interesting to watch as the trade deadline approaches. But to your point, Juice, they're not out of this thing. They're not out of this thing at all. 4.5 back in the Central and 3 back in the wild card. Very manageable. And there's a lot of baseball to be played. You're finally seeing a healthy Seiya Suzuki. You're seeing a hot Christopher Morel. Dansby is, I think, with the weather, those top 3 heat up as well. There is a lot of optimism, I think, going forward that this team can still do it. So it's absolutely something we're going to have to keep an eye on. One quick note there from Jeremiah. He says, cough, cough. He says, Andrew Chafin, unfortunately, the Diamondbacks are second right now in the NL West. They're just a game and a half out of the Dodgers. So I don't think he's getting moved if the Diamonds are in a Diamondbacks are in
And
a
two,
pen.
Ron, like I want to ask you, do you think that they feel comfortable with? I know it's only having one lefty and it's Brandon Hughes, but Leiter Jr. is that like lefty specialist type guy, right? And if you're able to add a guy at the back end of the bullpen who you can give the ninth and Cody Hoyer and not have to worry about playing any matchups, I think that opens up, like you said, in yesterday, was it yesterday's show or whenever you guys were on last in the 3-man, you had talked about having the flexibility of being able to, once you give somebody the ninth, all the different roles are kind of able to move better into, their place.
Yeah.
I start to wonder, like, is the not having a second lefty thing really that important, you think?
I think because of the amount of guys that they have that are right-handed that can go multiple innings, I think they would like to have maybe a couple more lefties.
Okay.
Because I think, like you said earlier, Leiter's a guy that can go 2 if you need him to. He can also get you out of a dirty jam and go 1. So he's got that swing flexibility. If Keegan figures it out, Alzolay, like you mentioned, right? You should throw him the 2 if he's coming out of the pen. I think because of that additional length you get out of some of the right-handed guys, I could see a world where they want to add one more lefty. Like,
it's fair.
Maybe 2 if you find 2 guys you really, really like. Like, I could see a world if they go get a guy who's maybe shorter term and is not as needed, but maybe has really good splits against, righties or something like that, but he's awful against lefties type thing, as just a back of the bullpen guy. And then if they're, got Bailey Horn coming, or if it's, some of these somebody that they can go target, that might be where they say we will carry 3 because we'll get that length. But I think at least one more. Like, they were looking into Britain this offseason.
Yeah.
So, like, the intention, I think, to bring in one more lefty is 100% there.
And I know I was reading too already that the Royals are already shopping Chapman. That's already another thing that's out there. I don't think that that's going to be an option for them, but it's something that they'd probably look into before at least poo-pooing it. I just think that's not even like bringing in another lefty at that point, because you're going to give Chapman the ninth, right? I mean, that's kind of the so really it's another lefty in your bullpen, but I mean, you're saving that guy to come out of the bullpen and close the game more likely than not. I don't want them to spend crazy capital to get a lefty. Like, that's why I like the Bailey Horn idea. I do think it'd be a little rush to bring him up here.
Yeah.
And 100% I'm glad that Judd's taking blame for this, because the lack of lefty depth within just this organization too, that are relievers, just sucks. Like, there's just not anything other. Really, the only name you can bring up is Bailey Horn. After that, everybody is like, it's a replacement level guy that you're just eating innings that doesn't deserve to be on the MLB roster.
Or are guys that have had a lot of bad luck. I think, like, friend of the program, Brad Wick, like, those guys have just had the bad luck. Like, you thought maybe they finally found one, but then bad luck strikes. But to your point, still showing that, like, beyond maybe 2 or maybe 3 guys, unless they really think highly of a guy like Brendan Little.
He's not. I've watched Brendan, and he's not ready. He's just not.
But, like, I think that's the problem, right? Like, the depth is so far away, and all the other guys are starting prospects, right? Like, you can make the argument, well, you could, get Jordan Witz's toes wet, but, like, you're not that ready to compete where you're going to derail a guy who's projected to be a starter.
I would absolutely hate that, as much as I love Jordan Wicks too, if they tried to do that.
Agreed, because I just think that derails his development of what.
Yeah, it's not what he's going to be.
Right. Like, I think that almost happened with Javier Assad, in the sense of he showed he could be a really good starter, but, like, maybe that 4 or 5 starter that you do see in the playoffs that comes out and gives you the 3. The World Baseball Classic is a great playoff-esque simulation. Cool. He's a guy that can come out if your starter can only get through 4, and give you those 3 at the back. I don't think he was destined to do it the whole season. Maybe that derails his development a little bit, because now they have to stretch him back out in AAA, right?
Right.
So like that's why I don't want them to go that route with Wicks. So I agree with you, man. Like there's a couple names, but if you wish injuries didn't strike, and then it's Bailey Horn right now that are kind of close to the majors.
Yeah,
So
and
I
even
think
Bailey too is like that's a rush and a half for that kid
sure,
to make that kind of jump. He's got great stuff, but it's just that poor kid, and to be, because let's be honest too, like he would be the lefty, because we've talked about Brandon Hughes on this. Yeah, he's not everyday Hughes this year because he is hurt. I mean, he's pitching through that knee brace. He's pitching through the knee problems. Like you would probably expect Bailey to get more run because he obviously Brennan is not as healthy as he should be. But yeah, it's Jed and Carter and Kantrowitz. They really dropped the ball on bringing in at least one more, even if it was just one more name to stash down in AAA or in AA. We'd be sitting here like, well, at least we have this, bullet to use, to try to burn this way. But yeah, it's he'll learn from it. But I mean, it's just a matter of bringing in more depth. And yeah, you're right. It's just a shame that there's just nobody else that we could sit here and name and be like, man, like other than Bailey Horn, who are we bringing here?
Yeah, and I think the Chapman thing is interesting. I really think they want Hoyer to be the closer. But I wanted to bring that up because our friend from Dingers, Mr. Jake Bouge, says Chapman's been pretty rough this season too, though. I mean, I think that must be an as of late thing. Yeah, he's blown 2 saves and 4 opportunities, but in 18 and 2/3, 20 appearances, 31 Ks, 289 ERA. Like he's 35. So,
I mean, it's literally better than anything that we're throwing out there from the left side.
I
right?
think that.
I mean,
agreed. But I think if you're bringing him in, I still think Hoyer gets the 9th. I really do. Like I think we started to see some of that in 2021 that he could be that guy that pitches late in the game. Unless they're like, hey, maybe Cody would be better in a setup role coming back. And then maybe you do get Chapman. And then with intentions of essentially walking him forward and giving him the 9th next season, maybe because of that lost year in 2022. I don't know, but I think it's certainly interesting. Jeremiah is still saying, if Chappie is available near the deadline, do it. Agreed. I say, hey, screw it. If he is available, I think that's a guy that they really wanted to bring back.
But again, the Cubs, and we're talking about one win here over a course of a lot of losses. The Cubs got to play their way into that. Like, I mean, I'm all for sitting here and this guy. And I started the conversation. I know by bringing up a name in Washington that, I like a little bit more. But this team's got to take care of business over the course of the next, week and a half here on their homestand and play your way into it. And I'd love to have those conversations. The problem is that we think there's a lot of baseball left, but there's really a minimal amount of baseball left until the trade deadline, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because you got to establish yourself as a buyer or a seller, by the end of June? Pretty much. That's your kind of deadline. And then before that, then you can start to, go into these different, teams and go, hey, who's available, who's not. So this is a really pivotal stretch over the course of the next, month and a half. Well, month and 2 weeks. So yeah. I don't know if Cub fans are this aware of how important this homestand is. Like this is one of those that, like, if you go, let's say you lose 2 out of 3 to each, and you go, what would that be? 3-9? 3-6?
If they lose
if they go 3-6 over the course of this next 9 games here.
Okay.
Let's say that.
I'm with you.
You're looking at what, 8 games back of the division at least?
It depends.
Yeah, right. But I'm just saying, you're 8 games back in the division is not where you want to be in June. It's just not. So, and this is tough. I mean, you look at the Mets are going to throw Senga out there tomorrow. That could be, then you're going into we talked about it off air, and you're going into the Thursday game with two pitchers for both sides. You don't know what you're getting out of. The Reds are much better than what you thought. And they've been a thorn in the Cubs' side over the course of the last couple of years. And then you have Tampa Bay, who playing out of this world baseball for a really long time, and they're a really good team.
Even though they got shit whipped.
Yeah, they got beat by a couple touchdowns today.
Yeah,
I saw
20-1 was your final score today to Toronto. Which thank you, Blue Jays, because I needed the fantasy points. But nonetheless,
there you go. But I don't know. It's a very important 9-game stretch here. They've won one. It'd be nice to look up at a 8-1 homestand, wouldn't it? Just 8-1. You lose one of these to Tampa, you sweep the next 2 series. Be great.
It would be great. And Juice, really quick before we do start to have visions into the future, I'm gonna yank us real quick out of the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole here. Really quick before we get to final thoughts. I mean, we gotta address Drew Smiley, right?
Yeah.
9 straight games now, 9 straight starts of 2 or less earned runs. That's hot. That's cool and tough. He has really stepped up right now. While guy you mentioned we'll see on Thursday for the Cubs, Jameson Taillon, is kind of struggling right now to find his stuff, whether it's, he's not fully healthy or what have you. Smiley has just been that guy that they've needed to piggyback off Stroman and Steele so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, if the playoffs started today, he's getting the ball in game 3. I mean, that's just 100%. He's been fantastic. The Cubs seem to have worked out a system. He hasn't thrown, into the triple digit. I don't think he's gone through the order, more than 3 times either. So they've kind of worked out an idea of this is how far he's going to go, and this is the pitch count that he stays at, and after that, we'll tip your cap and thank you for 5, 6, whatever innings it is, but yeah, man, he's been fantastic. That it was cool to kind of watch the pregame and see the curveball he's throwing. They were showing all the grips and things like that, and then you watch his fastball. It's kind of a lot of. Is it weird that I think that he reminds me of another lefty that pitched for the Cubs and Ted Lilly? He kind of bangs you in with that fastball to right-handers.
I like that.
Has that nasty just dropping in curveball that. Yeah, just every time I watch him pitch, I'm like, Ted Lilly, missed that guy throwing his glove around on the mound in what was that, in Arizona?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I don't know why, but he's just one of those lefties all to me too, other than Steele. They all seem to be the same cut from the same cloth. Same cloth. It's just a weird angle. That's why lefties are always been so tough to hit for at least me. I don't know. I was a right-handed hitter, and I still couldn't hit lefties. But
it's such a different arm motion, right? It's just for being just your other arm, right? They are so different than righties in terms of windup and how they throw a baseball. Yeah, I mean, he does give me Ted Lilly vibes, and I like that. Because Lilly was incredibly reliable for those Cubs teams. He was a really good guy to throw behind the likes of Carlos Zambrano and company. So I think that's not bad at all for this team, right? Because you got Justin Steele, who, is kind of feels like your modern day, Lester in some ways, right? Good old country boy. He just, goes out there, that bulldog, mentality on the mound, and then you've got Stroh, who's almost. Stroh is so unique, right? He's not like a Jake Arrieta, who's a power pitcher. He's not some of these other guys, but he's just such a fresh twist that this Cubs team has never had before. And you line those 3 up together, and they're kind of a fun rotation. And it makes you wonder what happens when Taillon does start to figure it out a little bit. Because even though he gives up, 4 earned runs in 2 2/3, he Ks 7 of them. He's still had a weird season. To me, if he gets it figured out, that front 4 is going to look nasty. And then if you get a somewhat Kyle Hendricks of old, at least 3.70 ERA Kyle Hendricks, 50 ERA Kyle Hendricks.
Shit, just eat some innings.
Yeah. This rotation could do some damage late in the season.
Is it weird that, like, as you were saying all those things about the starters, I get, like, remember in 16, the 16 Giants when they had Bumgarner and Cueto, and it was that Matt Moore that they had traded for? I think he's more. Like, I look at those three and I'm like, man, like, that's so similar to, like, what the Cubs kind of have right now, right? It's like Cueto was quirky and, like, had, like, that's Stroh to me. You know what I mean? Like, he's quirky, like, changes up his windups, has that. And Mad Bum's like that Justin Steele. I've talked about it here. You know, he's got that bulldog attitude. And Moore was just that, like, out of nowhere, smiley type, right? Like, had a couple bad years, was resurrected a little bit in San Francisco. You know, it's just those three just kind of, man, just thinking about it. I was like, man, like that 16 Giants team, that was kind of close to what that team lost to the Cubs, but
yeah,
you know, I don't know. I just had that weird comparison right there.
That's the way it be sometimes, my man. But hey, man, like you said, it's a good building block, but they got to do it again tomorrow. So before we look ahead, Juice, final thoughts on this win, buddy.
Do you think Morel hits another homer tomorrow?
I hope he does. I'm feeling good vibes.
He's just so fun to watch. And it starts to make me think, like, man, like, I want to see him play third more often. I really do. Because it's just a huge hole in this whole Cubs organization as well. There's just not anybody coming. It's like, man, if he could just play third a little better defensively, then he can start to, kind of experiment. And too, like, obviously, we've talked on this show a little bit about Shohei Ohtani and the hope that they'll be in that sweepstakes. You're not going to be DHing Morel if Shohei Ohtani's here. So just be nice if we could just see more starts with him at third, because I just want to see him play the position more often. Because I think that with this outfield depth that they have in the minors, like he's going to have to carve himself a spot at the hot corner, because short and second, it's not playing first. It's not playing any spots on the outfield over the course of when Bellinger comes back, when PCA is up here and Kevin Alcantara, and it's like, man, like that. And you look down the run, and obviously Triantos is ways and ways away. Yeah, it's like there's no solution at that position at the current moment, and I want to see him play that position more often. With Patrick Wisdom struggling a little bit more, I thought this would be the perfect time to play him in there, but maybe he's just not fine-tuned enough yet at third to be trusted over there. But I want to see it more often. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about, Morel kind of fitting in where he's at, like, I agree. I would love to see him play third. I wonder if they're right now, because of the maybe lack of depth on the major league roster in terms of guys producing, maybe they feel he's more valuable right now in that utility role. But then once these guys get healthier and we start to see a couple more prospects this year, maybe he does carve into that role. But you got to start somewhere, right? He's got to play third soon. And you, like you said, you look up and down the prospect, even the top 30. Yeah, Triantos, 2025. I mean, he's only in high A. He's in your backyard, Juice. Yeah. You go down further down the list. Pedro Ramirez is in rookie ball. He's only 19. And then Chase Strumpf is probably the closest, but he's at Double A. He's 25, but he's a guy you can move around a little bit too. Maybe he's what they envisioned Madrigal would have been. Guy that can play third and second, can give you some hitting off the bench. Obviously, Strumpf, I think, is a little more well balanced than Madrigal just being the, hit it and run T-ball guy. I think eventually he's got to make his way over there. And I agree with you. Yeah, man, my final thought is kind of along those lines, though, going back. I hope he hits another home run tomorrow, man. He is so fun to watch right now. I've already got it planned up. I'll be at Sunday's game, and I'm probably going to be at Tuesday's game too next week in that Rays series. The Morel jersey's getting worn for one of them, because just the vibes at Wrigley are immaculate right now. And I am so pumped to see him back up with the team. They're fun, man. Like I haven't gotten I went to so many games early in the season. I've seen more Hosmer and Mancini than I have Mervis and Morel. So and not as much Seah. So I need to get that flavor back again with the Cubs, because right now I still got the old team vibes. Like it still hasn't totally hit me because I haven't been on a show since all this happened, of like Hosmer and all these guys getting moved and Keegan going down, and like I'm still readapting to what this team looks like. You know what I mean? In terms of from getting my thoughts out on what's going on. So I think it starts somewhere, and the lightning bolt that is Christopher Morel hitting a home run would be a pretty good jolt, probably for them getting a W in that game, Juice. And like you said, buddy, let's go ahead and look to that game, because again, you got to win a series, and they can do it tomorrow. And what better day than tomorrow, because it's a 6:40 start on Tuesday, May 24th at Wrigley Field. Cubs and Mets do battle. It'll be Kodai Senga. Cubs were in the Kodai Senga sweepstakes in the offseason. The righty, is 4-2 on the year with a 3.77 ERA and 55 punch-outs. And it's the Stroh show tomorrow. They're able to go the 4-man rotation right now because of all these off days and whatnot. Stroh's coming in 3-4 on the season, 3.05 ERA with 51 punch-outs. Obviously, nobody in this Cubs team has seen Kodai Senga. He hasn't pitched against them yet. But on the other side, a couple of guys like to beat him up. Lindor likes to beat him up. Alonso has a pair of hits off him. But, really it's Lindor. Stay away from him. Maybe Stroh turns that around tomorrow and throws a gem. Juice, how do they get the series win, buddy?
Timely hitting. When you get runners on and you get guys who are, in scoring position, you got to hit. And that's been an Achilles heel over the course of, the last month here for this Cubs team. I think they're going to get a good performance out of Stroh. I mean, for the most part, they have. And this Mets team, they're gettable. You can kind of move around that lineup, and Smiley kind of showed it today. Like there were moments where the Mets were threatening, and he was able to work around certain hitters to get other hitters out to kind of take advantage of guys who are young like Beatty, who are in that lineup, who are new to the major leagues and seeing major league pitching for the first time and just kind of taking a lot in. So tomorrow to me, it's all about timely hitting. If we get runners on, we got to get them in, because I don't think that Senga is going to give us a lot of opportunities to, blow this thing open or to get a lead. And two, the bullpen's got to be ready to build on tonight's success. They came into the game, they bridged you for 4. Take that as a win and go, all right, tomorrow we got to do this again, because this is how this Cubs team is built. The starters go 6, and then this Cubs team has to, this bullpen has to bridge the way to the end. They're doing it without a closer right now. And somebody's got to just step up and say, all right, get on the back. We're getting to the end of this game with a lead, and we're going to win this ball game, and we're going to try to go for the sweep on Thursday. And that's exactly what they have to do. Timely hitting, because I don't think the Mets are going to throw the ball around like they did tonight. I think you'll see ground balls made into outs, and it'll be tough to score tomorrow. It'll be one of those that if you get a chance to have runners in the scoring position, you got to get them in, and by any means necessary. If it means going the other way with something just to get a fly out so you can get a run in, advance a runner, whatever you got to do, get a bunt down. Sometimes those are important. But let's say if there's a way to beat Kodai Senga tomorrow, it's getting timely hitting, and that's exactly what the Cubs have kind of struggled with, and hopefully they take today's success into tomorrow.
100%, man. I am on board with you there. Fun fact about this game: it is a national game on MLB Network, so a little midweek love for the Cubs Mets matchup. Gotta love that. Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Timely hitting would be nice. I have one final question for you, Juice, before we start to break the show down. We haven't done it in a while either. Who is your fly the W pick for the rest of this series?
I think the easy way to go would be Christopher Morel. but I'm going to actually stick with a guy that I think has been putting up the most unsung at bats, and that's Mr. Seiya Suzuki. So I think tomorrow, like as I look at Seiya in this matchup, it's a national game on MLB. You'll be going against Kodai Senga, two large names overseas. I think there'll be a lot of eyes watching this game, and hopefully our guy gets the best. It would be nice to go into tomorrow's game and see him homer again, because he's really hot right now, man. Really seeing it like a beach ball. It'd be nice to see him hit another homer, and obviously I'm going to root for Morel to break the record, the franchise record here, and it'd be pretty cool.
It certainly would, and I love the Suzuki pick, and add some numbers to your argument for you here, Juice. Beginning before that road trip, before that Minnesota series, Suzuki's OPS was 711 at the beginning of that series. He has now increased his OPS to 866.
Yeah.
That's how hot he's coming. He's healthy. He's finally healthy. We're starting to see that next step. I love that pick, Juice. I'm also going to stay away from Morel. I hope he does get the franchise record, and there is no lost love for not taking him as the fly the W pick. I think it's just a guy, because it's over the course of the series, he needs to be a Met killer. Played this team a lot with his prior team. I'm going to go with Dansby Swanson. It's my fly the W pick. He had a big RBI tonight, had the double. Let's see some more of that. Let's get that OPS back up for him as well, because he's gone a little cold here. No better time than a team that he used to see a shit ton when he was in Atlanta, in the New York Mets. Juice, before we break this thing down, buddy, want to remind everybody, Cubs, one of two official Cubs podcasts, the On Tap Sports Network. Check out our friends over at Dingers. They were live last night. Mitch and Jake did a great job. Be sure to go listen to that. They are live every Monday. Follow them at Dinger Cubs on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure to follow all the boys, as Kevin, Jeff, Mitch, and Jake do a great job as the Monday night crew, and they are a blast as well on Monday nights. Follow us as well here at Cubs on Tap, CUBBIES on Tap on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Luce on Tap. He's at Juice on Tap, at Joey Knows Nothing, at Teddy Freddy 270, at Nick_on Tap. Be sure to follow all of us at Bulls Guy Rob, our prospect guy as well. Be sure to follow along with everybody throughout the whole course of the season. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks. You know the drill. We've got it all. And yes, Cubs fans, you got friends that like them too, and we do too. Send your Sox friends to our Sox friends over at Sox on Tap, as they do a great job covering the boys over at 35th and Shields. On Tap Sports Network, at On Tap Sportsnet on Twitter and Instagram. www.ontapsportsnet.com, the On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Juice, always a pleasure, buddy. Good to be back. Good news from your family. Good news from our Cubs family as they get a big dub. Things we love to see. Buddy, what do you say we get out of here the only way I know how? The Cubs on Tap.
Fuck the Cardinals.
As always, and let's go Cubbies.